Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Michael Lofton Show on Reason and Theology. We're going to be reviewing a papal audience, the first general audience of Pope Leo XIV, just posted on the Vatican website today because it was done today. And so a lot of firsts that we've been covering. This is his first general audience that popes do weekly. And so now that he has officially been installed as the Bishop of Rome, had his inaugural liturgy and address, now he's starting to get into the swing of things, beginning with his general audience. And I want to take a look at it because it's an important general audience that I think shows and perhaps sets the tone for everything that we see coming forward from him. What we've seen so far is that he is really big on continuing the reforms of the Second Vatican Council, continuing Pope Francis's legacy. And he also has a message here that I think is very Christ-centered. So it appears that he wants to balance out some of the emphases that we saw with the previous pontificate, while at the same time emphasizing and maybe stressing a little bit more the gospel, Jesus in a Christ-centered message. Not that you didn't have that with Pope Francis, but I get the impression he wants to put that front and center. So before we dive in, I do want to remind y'all, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Now let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at his general audience here. All right, so maybe let me zoom in a little bit more on that so you can see it on your screen, especially if you're using a phone. All right, so this morning's general audience took place at 10 in the Paul VI Hall, where the Holy Father Leo XIV met with groups of pilgrims and faithful from Italy and all over the world. In his address in Italian, the Pope resumed the cycle of catechesis to continue throughout the entire Jubilee year, Jesus Christ, our hope, focusing on the theme, the sower. He spoke to them at length in parables. After summarizing his catechesis in various languages, the Holy Father addressed special greetings to the faithful present. He then made an appeal for the situation in the Gaza Strip. So they're just kind of summarizing what he said there. Perhaps on another show we could take a look more specifically at his comments, but he's wanting to see peace over there with this particular situation and calling for it. He's very concerned about what's taking place. He feels that too many innocent lives are being thrown away and killed, and so he's speaking out against that. The general audience concluded with the recitation of the Our Father and the Apostolic Blessing. So here we go. Dear brothers and sisters, he says, I'm pleased to welcome you in this, my first general audience. Today, I'll resume the cycle of Jubilee catechesis on the theme, Jesus Christ, our hope, initiated by Pope Francis. So this is continuing what Pope Francis initiated. Okay, let us continue today to meditate on the parables of Jesus, which helps us to regain hope because they show us how God works in history. Today, I would like to dwell on a parable which is somewhat peculiar, because it's a sort of introduction to all the parables. I refer to that of the sower. In a certain sense, this account we can recognize Jesus' way of communicating, which has a great deal to teach us for proclaiming the gospel today. So here's an emphasis on the proclamation of the gospel, something that you saw at the beginning of Pope Francis's pontificate with Evangelii Vitae, document dedicated to that. I'm sorry, Evangelium Gaudium, right? Okay. Continuing here. Every parable tells a story that is taken from everyday life, yet wants to tell us something more, to refer us to a deeper meaning. The parable raises questions in us. It invites us not to stop at appearances. Before the story that is told or the image that is presented to me, I can ask myself, where am I in this story? What does this image say to my life? In fact, the term parable comes from the Greek verb parabelein, which means to throw in front of. The parable throws before me a word that provokes me and prompts me to question myself. The parable of the sower talks precisely about the dynamic of the word of God and the effects it produces. Indeed, every word of the gospel is like a seed that is thrown on the ground of our life. Jesus uses the image of the seed many times with many different meanings. Chapter 13 of the Gospel of Matthew, the parable of the sower, introduces a series of other short parables, some of which talk precisely about what is happening on the terrain. The wheat and the weeds, The mustard seed, the treasure hidden in the field. What then is this soil? It is our heart, but it's also the world, the community, the church. The word of God, in fact, makes fruitful and provokes every reality. At the beginning, we see Jesus who leaves the house and gathers a great crowd around him. His word fascinates and intrigues. Among the people, there are obviously many different situations. The word of Jesus is for everyone, but it works in each person in a different way. The context allows us to understand better the meaning of the parable. After a rather unusual sower goes out to sow, but does not care where the seed falls, he throws the seed even where it's unlikely they will bear fruit, on the path, on the rocks, among the thorns. This attitude surprises the listener and introduces him to ask, how come? We are used to calculating things, and at times it isn't necessary, but this does not apply in love. The way in which this wasteful sower throws the seed is an image of the way God loves us. Indeed, it is true that the destiny of the seed depends also on the way in which the earth welcomes it and the situation in which it finds itself. But first and foremost, in this parable, Jesus tells us that God throws the seed of his word on all kinds of soil. That is in any situation of ours. At times, we're more superficial and distracted. At times, we let ourselves get carried away by enthusiasm. Sometimes we're burdened by life's worries. But there's also times when we're willing and welcoming. God is confident and hopes that sooner or later the seed will blossom. This is how he loves us. He does not wait for us to become the best soil, but he always generously gives us his word. Perhaps by seeing that he trusts us, the desire to be better soil will be kindled in us. This is hope founded on the rock of God's generosity and mercy. And telling us the way in which the seed bears fruit, Jesus is also talking about his life. Jesus is the word, he is the seed. And the seed to bear fruit must die. Thus, this parable tells us that God is ready to waste away for us, that Jesus is willing to die in order to transform our life. I have in mind that beautiful painting by Van Gogh, The Sower at Sunset. That image of the sower in the blazing sun also speaks to me of the farmer's toil. It strikes me that behind the sower, Van Gogh depicted the grain already ripe. It seems to me an image of hope. One way or another, the seed has borne fruit. We're not sure exactly how, but it has. At the center of the scene, however, is not the sower who stands to the side. Instead, the whole painting is dominated by the image of the sun, perhaps to remind us that it is God who moves history, even if he sometimes seems absent or distant. It's the sun that warms the clouds of the earth and makes the seed ripen. Dear brothers and sisters, in what situation of life today is the word of God reaching us? Let us ask the Lord for the grace always to welcome this seed that is his word. And if we realize we are not a fruitful soil, let us be discouraged. Let us not be discouraged, but let us ask him to work on us more to make us become a better terrain. And then he has a greeting in English that he offered. He welcomes English speaking pilgrims, gives a shout out to where they're coming from. He says, with a prayerful good wishes that the present Jubilee of Hope may be for you and your families at a time of grace and spiritual renewal. I invoke upon you all the joy and peace of the Lord Jesus. He says, the situation in the Gaza Strip is increasingly worrying and painful. I renew my heartfelt appeal to allow the entry of dignified humanitarian aid and to put an end to the hostilities, the heart-rendering price of which is being paid by children, the elderly, and the sick. So he is very clear in speaking out against that situation and has been since day one. So that kind of tells you and gives you an impression of what you can look forward to moving forward, since this is his general audience. So, he's addressing issues that are going on in the world, the situation with Gaza. He's also very clearly teaching based on scripture and has a Christ-centered theme here, speaking about the parables. So I think moving forward, you're going to get that kind of emphasis. He's going to address situations in the world, but also he's going to bring people back to the scriptures and back to a Christ-centered message and a solution of Jesus as the solution to the problems in everyday life and everything that's going on in the world. So I think this kind of gives you a flavor for him. And, you couple this along with everything else that we've seen, I think it gives you a really good idea of what you can expect moving forward. And, just kind of comparing this to everything I've seen before with the previous pontificate, there's certainly continuity, right? So, and I think that was to be expected. I didn't expect, a new pope to come in and just start reversing everything. It seemed like it would make more sense that the pope would be in continuity with predecessors, and that's generally the way it happens anyway. And I'm still getting that impression here when I take a look at this audience and everything else that I've covered. In fact, I covered a number of things yesterday. We went over another one of his audiences, or an address to Jews and Muslims and non-Catholic Christians, and we get an idea for what his vision is there, what interreligious dialogue will look like, what ecumenism will look like. We covered that yesterday. In addition to some fake news about did the Pope deny papal supremacy and stuff like that. So if you haven't seen those videos, go and watch them. And if you enjoy these, please let me know. I would appreciate some feedback for y'all. Do y'all want to see more of this kind of coverage, or do you want me to focus on other things? I do want to remind y'all, hit that subscribe button and like button if y'all haven't already. I want to address something else I saw in the comment section that I thought was worth addressing, somewhat unrelated to today's discussion, but definitely related to what we've been talking about lately with the papacy, the magisterium, stuff like that. I won't put the person's name on the screen because I don't want to put them on blast or anything, but I'll just read the comment. One person says, as a traditionalist, rational Catholic, I disagree on this point with the Pope. And the point was where Pope Leo just said yesterday that Muslims and Christians worship the same God, right? The same claim that Vatican II makes, the same claim that all of the popes have made in the post-conciliar period, the same claim that many popes in the medieval period, the same claim that some in the early church maintained once you had the advent of Islam. So Damascene, for example. So it's a consistent message, right? I mean, he doesn't deviate from the traditional perspective there. But some people kind of get hung up with how does that work with, a denial of the Trinity and stuff like that. That's been explored numerous times. But this is what the person is saying. They're saying, as a traditionalist, rational Catholic, I disagree on this point with the Pope. But yes, we all learned with previous popes to agree to disagree. And, I point out, look, many Catholics pick and choose what they want to believe from the magisterium. This isn't just I'm agreeing to disagree with the Pope. It's an agree to disagree with the magisterium. There is a distinction, right? It's not like the Pope is just expressing a private opinion. It is a teaching of an ecumenical council. It is a teaching of numerous popes. So it's a teaching that one disagrees with. So I point out, many Catholics pick and choose what they want to believe from the magisterium. They believe this, but then they don't believe that. And I said, this is why they often are compared to Protestants who do the exact same thing. This is exactly what Martin Luther did. He said, I accept this from these councils, but I don't accept that because they're not infallible, because they made a mistake here in my private judgment. So I accept this part of the council. I don't accept that. Well, that's exactly what Catholics who express this kind of ideology are doing here. And the person said, indeed, I might disagree with the magisterium, but I must accept it in order to keep the promise of obedience to the successor of Peter. And I point out that that's just a nonsensical position. What you're saying is I have to disagree with the magisterium to follow the magisterium, or I have to disagree with Peter to follow Peter. I have to disagree with authority to follow authority. I have to disagree with the successor of St. Peter to agree with the successor of St. Peter. That's a nonsensical position. What one doesn't realize is that when they're disagreeing with the magisterium, they're doing just that. They're disobeying the successor of St. Peter. That's the whole point. So it's a nonsensical and inherently contradictory position. This is why I've just always pointed out the concept of dissent, which is foreign to Catholicism. It was especially a new concept. I mean, you've obviously seen dissent all throughout church history, but a dissent against a non-definitive teaching is a recent phenomenon that started with the German bishops and other bishops who started to dissent against Humanae Vitae. So it came from liberalism. It came from progressive quarters in the Catholic Church, and now it's transitioned over into traditionalist quarters. The irony, right? But dissent is never allowed in the Catholic Church. There's rare exceptions where one may withhold assent in very rare cases, but that's not dissent and public rejection of something, as Dona Veritatis notes. Um, so I think that a lot of people just don't realize their ideology here is just absolutely incompatible to the notion of magisterial authority. If you want to pick and choose, if you want to be in the driver's seat, if you ultimately want to be the center of the truth, if you ultimately want to say, I agree with the magisterium insofar as it speaks the truth, you're the standard, not the magisterium. It's you who set yourself up as an authority over the magisterium when you do that. So at that point, what then is the point of Catholicism? It seems like you've abandoned the Catholic paradigm. That's literally every non-Catholic paradigm, whether we're talking about Eastern Orthodoxy, Protestantism, or even non-Christian religions. That's every other paradigm with just few exceptions, maybe Ismaili Islam and Mormonism or something, right? There's very few instances where you have something that's comparable to the Catholic magisterium. In most paradigms, it's you who are kind of in the driver's seat. And so once you adopt this mentality, my honest question is, why even entertain Catholicism at that point? You've abandoned the absolute center and central component of what Catholic teaching authority is. Once you throw that away, there's nothing distinctive about Catholicism. It's just one among many opinions and denominations and points of view. It's no longer unique in its claim to authority. So when I see this kind of stuff from traditionalists, I don't believe that they're being traditional. I have to call it out respectfully and say, well, as a traditionalist, you're not being traditional. You're actually coming with a progressive ideology that is far from traditional. It's a recent phenomenon that began around the late 1960s. This was never allowed, where you can dissent against non-definitive teachings. That's not a traditional position. It has always been the teaching of the church that there is grave matter when you do that. So, is Michael Lofton a former Orthodox? Yeah, I had some time in Eastern Orthodoxy, and I wrote about that in my book, Answering Orthodoxy. So maybe check that out there. Viola, just to clarify, we aren't allowed to disagree with the magisterium at all. Okay. Well, I have a whole lot of videos talking about this in more detail, but let's just maybe recap and re-summarize, right? Okay. So the Catholic Church expects you to accept all of its infallible teachings with a certain level of assent, the highest level of assent, if you will. For dogmas, it's with the assent of faith. With definitive Catholic doctrine, it would be an assent of ecclesiastical faith. With the non-infallible teachings, you have to assent to those teachings with religious submission of intellect and will. So it's kind of a downgraded assent, but it's still assent nonetheless. And the Catholic Church teaches that you have to accept that for all magisterial teachings, even the non-infallible ones. So yes, you do have to accept all of them. Can you disagree? What do you mean by disagree? In rare cases, it allows very well-trained theologians, after meeting certain conditions, to withhold assent. So they don't adopt the teaching, they don't assent to it, but they also don't reject it. They're still open to it, and they also don't publicly reject it either. They privately withhold assent. They don't publicly reject it. There's a huge difference. I have videos going into that in detail. It's a distinction that you can see, especially rooted in the document from the Magisterium Dona Veritatis. Okay. So what do you mean by disagree? If it's a magisterial teaching, the default is you're required to assent to it with religious submission of intellect and will. And if you don't, it's grave matter. In very rare cases, a very well-trained theologian, not your average person, can withhold assent, but that's not dissent. So the very exceptional cases, even then, you're not disagreeing. Disagreeing implies dissent. Rather, you're failing to adhere to it while still remaining open to the truth of the matter. That's not fully disagreeing. That's like That's somewhere in the middle. That's kind of like, well, I don't know if I can hold to that, but I'm also not rejecting it. I'm open to it being truth, but I can't quite bring myself there. It's this middle state, right? It's this middle category. It's not fully disagreeing, but it's also clearly not agreeing, right? Um, and that's rare, that's exceptional, and that's for well-trained theologians, as Dona Veritatis notes. Otherwise, for the vast majority of people, there's grave matter there. That's always been the case. But every time I mention this, people will always say, but Michael, but wait, and they'll mention these rare exceptions as if those rare exceptions are the rule. That's why I had to just belabor this point and clarify that. Okay, so yeah, Lumen Gentium 16 says Muslims are claiming to worship God, the God of Abraham, points out similarities that they might help them finding the truth, then says they're deceived by the evil one. No, it says often people are deceived by the evil one. I've pointed that out many times. That also doesn't mean that they're not still worshiping God, right? I mean, there's plenty of Catholics who worship God and are still deceived by the evil one, right? That doesn't, so what you're saying doesn't logically follow. Also, it doesn't just say that they claim to worship the God of Abraham. In the very next sentence, it says, together with us, they adore the one God. This argument is tired. It needs to be retired. Stop repeating these same terrible arguments. Y'all need to do a system update. It's like y'all are still running on Windows 1998 or something. Look, you need to hit the reboot button, do a system update. These arguments are trash. You got to move past this stuff. Plus, who cares what Lumen Gentium says? It's not the end all and be all. Numerous popes have said it too. So even if you somehow got through the cracks, slipped through the cracks with some minor distinction here with Lumen Gentium, you're still running up against Pius X and numerous other popes who have said the same thing. It just doesn't work. It's time to retire this really bad argument and move on. But I appreciate you commenting and offering that and allowing me the opportunity to repeat the same response for the last 50th time in the last week. Jean Matthew, thank you. A great explanation, Michael. People are so confused about the basics of the magisterium. Yeah, that's the point. And I think people are set up for failure in catechesis. Right now the Catholic Church does not catechize people very well, especially on ecclesiology and the magisterium. They're setting people up for failure. There's a major lacuna here in catechesis, and we've seen how it has come back to bite so many Catholics who end up leaving the Catholic Church because of a lack of understanding of how the magisterium works. And sometimes they'll formally remain Catholic, but internally they're in dissent, and then they cause problems and confusion in the Catholic Church by adhering to positions and paradigms that are non-Catholic while still in the midst of Catholics, creating further confusion. Rice Bear says we need the profession of the Catholic faith to be said at Mass, the full creed. Yeah, that would help. But even then, how many people would understand it? Right? Yeah, I can read to you right now, the 3 concluding paragraphs, but how many people would understand it if I did? People don't even understand the Nicene Creed when they recite it every Sunday, let alone would they understand the 3 concluding paragraphs of the profession of faith. So it's a huge problem. When cardinals and bishops don't understand the magisterium, who can blame them? Mike says, yeah. That disturbed me the most, right? That's a massive problem. Where do we begin on that one, right? Yeah, I agree with you. Sorry about that. Sorry. I yelled at Malachi over there to tell him I'm doing a show. So back to what we were saying. Yeah, it's a massive problem with catechesis, even among the clergy. And when you have cardinals who don't know the basic of the magisterium, it's an embarrassing situation. And that will trickle down to everyone else. Yeah, it's a massive problem. Okay. I knew about obedience to the magisterium because of my very traditional maternal grandmother. That's pretty cool, Liliana. Most people don't know though, right? What else we got in the chat? Darren says, great point, and I agree. I couldn't agree with all the teachings, and that's why I'm no longer Catholic, even though there is much about the Catholic Church I like. I understand. I mean, I think that, I can at least respect your position more than a Catholic who lingers around while inherently living a life contradictory to it with their public theological positions and dissent. That just causes so much confusion, and it sends mixed signals, and it's frankly just very dishonest. Um, and and so I actually think, look, if you conclude the magisterium is wrong, I can see why you would say, yeah, why am I wasting my time with the Catholic Church? I see people like I would say you're being more consistent within that paradigm, right? But for the people who say I hold to the Catholic Church, but I reject its teaching authority on X, Y, and Z, that's an inherently contradictory position, and I don't see how it's not. Nobody's ever shown a good argument as to how it's not, but there's numerous documents from the magisterium that would show this is inherently contradictory and even again dishonest in some ways. Shell, seems to me that most of the catechesis issues are related to creative Catholics more so than those of us who went through OCIA. I don't know if I agree with that, Shell. I mean, so many converts, they don't know anything about the magisterium. Famous converts don't know anything about the magisterium. I don't think OCIA is any better. I think it sets people up for failure here, unfortunately. So I don't know. I don't think there's a difference. Maybe you're right though. Maybe my personal observations are just that, right? And maybe they're limited. How does one be loyal to the magisterium while seeing issues in the way that the church is handling interreligious dialogue? Submit, but my whole opinion that it could be handled differently. So there's a difference between an application of doctrine and the doctrine itself. All right. So the question of assent is in relation to the doctrine. The question of an application of doctrine is more prudential in nature. There's not necessarily a level of assent owed to those. In some cases, in the matters of discipline, there is a level of assent, obedience. But in prudential judgments, in the way that the church kind of conducts itself, those are not magisterial acts per se that are binding on you. There's nothing for you to adhere to. The adhering of something is in relation to the teaching, not necessarily a prudential judgment. There's some qualifications I can add to that, but I'm just speaking general here. Darren said, yep, I was exactly what you're describing. I went all in and then started paying attention. Well, that's the thing. Most people don't pay attention, right? And some people pay attention. They look for ways to harmonize things and they look for ways to reconcile things. Other people, perhaps such as yourself, they pay attention and then they see rupture and discontinuity and they leave the Catholic Church. So there's often different conclusions based on methodologies. Perhaps some have more access to information than others. And so, yeah, different people come to different conclusions. But my point is, though, if you come to the conclusion that the magisterium is leading you astray and maybe is even teaching heresy, why are you wasting your time with it? I mean, it seems like you're a more reliable guide than the magisterium. If you've deemed the magisterium to be deviant and heretical, it seems to me like you've already concluded that you're a better source of information and more reliable standard than the magisterium. At that point, why would you waste your time with the Catholic Church? It just doesn't make any sense. So this is why I say to me, it seems inherently dishonest and it just causes a whole lot of confusion. It's like trying to be a Lutheran while rejecting sola fide. That's just a dishonest position. Or a Lutheran while rejecting sola scriptura. That's just dishonest and disruptive to that community. If you don't believe sola fide or sola scriptura, then go to a community where that is the position. Don't stay in the ranks of a community where that's inherently contradictory. It's dishonest and disruptive. And we're seeing a lot of disruption in the Catholic Church because of this type of stuff. Okay. Viola says that makes sense. Okay, good. Chris says, thanks, I appreciate it. Glad it's helpful. Instant says, so far, everything has been good with Pope Leo. Can't complain. Christ Bear, what would you do if a communion teacher at your church believes the Pope is a heretic? The priest was informed, he still teaches. Not a whole lot you could do, right? I mean, you could talk to the bishop, but I'll tell you right now, in this day and age, they're not going to do anything. And that's part of the problem, isn't it? A lack of church discipline, not taking the faith seriously. The bishops, cardinals, many of them don't take this seriously. Some of them do. Some priests do. Some deacons do. Some laity do. Some cardinals do. Some bishops do. Many don't. And that's the sad reality. And I know some people don't want to hear that. That's the truth. I'm sorry. I know you might be splash of cold water in the face, but look, you got to come to terms with reality. Okay, so you could try to do something. You can try to go above the priest there and bring the concerns to the bishop, and perhaps you should, but don't expect anything to be done. Don't. If you expect it to be done, you set yourself up for failure whenever it doesn't happen, because it likely won't. Likely, if you were to talk to the bishop himself probably has some massive deficiencies in his understanding of the faith as well. So you might end up pulling on that thread and finding out how deep this problem goes, right? It's concerning. I've been there. Alana says, as a catechist, I think that having catechists need something like the monthly Virtus Bulletins to teach some of the basics of our faith because I find this problem even among catechists. Okay, but say you have that. Who's going to write the email list or the teaching? It's likely going to be a person who also doesn't know their left from their right on this. And so I don't know if that's going to solve the problem, but I hear what you're saying. It could theoretically do so if the right person is writing it, right? But there's so few people who understand the magisterium, even at a basic level. There's some. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they're out there. I'm just saying there's so few. Chris says, why don't they take it seriously? I think there's a combination of things. It's different for different people, right? Some people just don't want to rock the boat, especially bishops. They don't like, let's not rock the boat kind of thing. They're usually men who are chosen specifically to be people who are not the rock the boat type. That's how they end up being a bishop in most cases. So they're usually not going to pick a priest who does rock the boat to become a bishop. So by the time you reach that, you're not likely not going to rock the boat or anything like that. Sometimes I think the clergy or maybe even some of the laity, they no longer believe the faith for one reason or another, but maybe they have a career tied into it. So think about it. If you're a bishop, and you've seen so many problems, you've been scandalized by so many things by the time you become a bishop. Let's say you no longer believe the faith, right? How likely is it you're going to leave? Very unlikely. There's a position of prominence, prestige, power. Bishops are highly exalted in the Catholic Church and have a prominent position. A lot of people who would no longer believe the faith would still want to hold on to that. Or I have so much invested in this. I have my retirement fund invested into this. So you have some priests who they no longer believe the faith for one reason or another, but their whole career is tied into this. Their retirement plan's tied into it. So, I mean, there's different reasons why some might not take it seriously. Those are a few, or maybe they believe the faith, or at least they think they do, but it's such a watered down understanding to where they're not disturbed by heretical comments or something like that, because they don't see it as heretical. They don't see it as problematic because they've bought into maybe in some cases a progressive understanding of doctrine. Um, so, like, I mean, there could be numerous reasons. It never ends, right? Here's a commenter: you're separating the clauses and butchering the context of Article 16. You're referring to Lumen Gentium 16. Even St. John Paul II said they're worshiping the wrong version of God in his 1994 book. I've already answered you on this. How many times do you want me to answer you on this? He says, stop blocking me, bro. Just for that, I'm going to block you. You're trolling at this point. I've already responded to you multiple times in multiple threads. You didn't take the comment seriously and interact with it sufficiently. I then saw you're not of goodwill and you're just trolling at that point. If you were of goodwill and taken the conversation seriously, you would have already interacted with the points that I said in response to your crossing the threshold of hope quote from John Paul II. I already told you, first of all, the quote that you offered doesn't contradict the point that I made about Lumen Gentium 16. Second of all, no, I am not splitting out things from Lumen Gentium 16. Third of all, I told you, even throw away Lumen Gentium, you still have numerous other acts of the magisterium that confirm what I'm saying. Fourth of all, you cannot quote a non-magisterial source to refute the magisterium. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? How many times does it have to be said? When you quote a non-magisterial source, a book from a pope who's not acting in his magisterium, over and against an ecumenical council, I can't help you anymore. Stop trolling. I'm going to keep blocking you because you're clearly not of goodwill. Most people I would tolerate. You're not of goodwill. You're not sincere, and you're not actually listening to the arguments and the responses. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate your videos because I was one of those Catholics that had issues with Pope Francis, and now I'm realizing a lot that came from ignorance. Yeah. Emily, Michael, I see you pour your heart into this. Thank you for all you do. God bless. Thanks. I try. It's like whack-a-mole, though, right? You knock one down, another one jumps up, and another one, and another one, and another. It's just they keep coming. It's like a nightmare, never-ending game of whack-a-mole. Oh boy, you gotta laugh at this point. Okay. Darren says, what got me as a Catholic was how you can have 6 parishes belonging to the same diocese while all behaving differently, with a gay director of liturgy and another very conservative. I understand your point, and that's a criticism I've often offered. And right, I think the common response is going to be abuse doesn't negate proper use. So what you're going to need to do is refute a Steelman version, refute the ideal. Don't refute like a failure to adhere to doctrine, right? So if you're going to falsify Catholicism, you don't go for the low-hanging fruit. You don't go for the abuses. You refute the Steelman version. That would be my advice to you. But I understand what you're saying, because you can't just dismiss abuse. Abuse is a problem. Abuse scandalizes people. Abuse has real impact on people. So I understand what you're saying. But if that's what you use to disqualify any religion, I think that you're using the wrong methodology. Maybe you're an atheist, and maybe at that point you're being consistent. But if you adhere to some other religious ideology than Catholicism, I think you would be contradicting yourself, because you'll find abuses in every community, and it's easy to dismiss a community because of abuses. You want to go after a steel man argument. Okay. All right. What else do we have here? Oh, Alexander, welcome. Thank you for joining and becoming a patron there. Drololo, or Dr. Lolo. Keep up the good work, Michael. You and Voice of Reason are one of the reasons why I became Catholic. Thank you. I appreciate your kind words there. What else do we have? A priest at an ICKSP parish I attend said in a sermon that Pope Francis made statements that contradict church doctrine. That's one of the problems. He's opening up, unfortunately, the institute to more discipline and restriction, perhaps, of the Latin Mass. Right now, Traditionis Custodes is for the parish level, but these institutes and priestly societies and stuff like that, when they engage in that kind of stuff, they're just going to open themselves up to discipline and restriction, and they're not doing themselves any favor when they do that. Should I have let the bishop know I'm not in that state anymore? There might be an obligation on your part to do what you can, but I'm just telling you, don't expect anything to happen. Just don't. Rarely will something actually happen. Rarely will it be corrected. You might still be obligated morally to attempt to do so. I'm just saying, measure your expectations here. Don't expect anything to be done. Look, when the situation at this point is that gay masses are tolerated. If gay masses are tolerated, like what? Don't expect a whole lot of church discipline. Brandon says many political conservatives are often violently Catholics. I'm looking the whole Catholic community, meaning liberals, don't go to Mass most of the year. They will go during hard times or social events. I don't know if I understand your comment. Sorry. What is a gay Mass? Yeah, it seems like a contradiction in terms, right? And it is. These are masses that celebrate during the liturgy. They celebrate homosexuality and pride. So you haven't heard of a pride mass? It's a thing. It happens. So yeah. Pride masses. Milwaukee Catholic Mass for LGBTQ community. You've never seen anything like that? Maybe that's a good thing that you haven't seen that, right? Gay Pride Mass in the Archdiocese of New York. I mean, I guess it's somewhat comforting that you haven't heard of these, right? Some might say, well, they're exceptional in nature. It's not all over the place kind of thing. I think one is too many, right? But I think the problem is it's not just a once in a while kind of thing. And also, it's allowed. It's tolerated. There's no motu proprio condemning pride masses. You got motu proprios restricting the Latin Mass. And I understand the reasons why Pope Francis did that. But to do that while not restricting pride masses, and here by restrict, I mean eliminate altogether. To do that and not do the other sends the wrong message. So it's a serious problem. Any information on if the German bishops have gotten any discipline yet? No, and I don't expect Pope Leo to really do a whole lot about it. Do you think Pope Leo might discipline the liberals and fake trads in the U.S.? I don't think he'll do really either. More considering he might be more aware of what's happening since he's American and spoke about fake news. He's more progressive leaning, and so he'll be more likely to discipline the trads, but even then, I don't think he's going to do a whole lot. Of course, he was the one who was over removing Bishop Strickland. There were reasons why. I understand. I get it. What I'm saying is I don't expect there to be a fair and balanced Application of discipline for both progressives and radical traditionalists, I don't expect that. Um, and and if anything, he might be more progressive leaning if he were to do so. I think he'll be the same as all the other popes who won't rock the boat on the question of discipline. That's all of the post-conciliar popes, every single one of them. They all were incredibly poor at the question of church discipline, and there's reasons why. Okay, what else we got? Wise Lion says, "I pray Leo cracks down on that. Be nice. I would love to be wrong, right? If he does, hey, wonderful. Um, but I have reasons for thinking he likely won't." Tanner says, "Calling the death penalty in and of itself immoral is heretical. Is it not? Saying it is in a qualified sense, like today, it is unnecessary or whatever reason is given, is not." I don't know who said it's immoral. Pope Francis in Traditionis Custodes said it's inadmissible. There's obviously a difference between immoral and inadmissible. However, he simultaneously said, as well as John Paul II and others, that it's against the dignity of the human person. When you violate someone's dignity, is that immoral? That would be the question that you would want to explore. Edgar says, "I hope Pope Leo lets women become priests." Well, first of all, he's already indicated that he's not open to that even prior to becoming Pope. But even if he were, so this is why I'm saying I think that this is somewhat dishonest. I don't know if you're a Catholic. You, Edgar, you might not be a Catholic, right? And if you weren't, okay, that makes sense. But Edgar, if you're a Catholic, it seems inherently dishonest to want that and remain Catholic. You already have Ordinatio Sacerdotalis that taught from the Catholic paradigm infallibly that women can't be ordained priests. He shut the door on that infallibly. It's dishonest to remain Catholic and try to still push for that. Again, I don't know if you're Catholic. I'm not. I'm just saying for those Catholics who I've seen cardinals promote that. It's dishonest of them when they do that because they're trying to push for something that the community has said can't be done already and has said so definitively. It's dishonest. Just go to a community that allows for that at that point if that's your position. There's Anglicans, there's plenty of other communities, old Catholics. Just go to them. It's dishonest to linger around the Catholic Church and try to change it from within when that church has already said definitively this is not possible to be reformed. It's disruptive to that community and it's dishonest. Again, not saying that you're one of those people. I don't know you and your situation. I'm talking generally. Are there usually disciplinary actions for gay pride masses? I've never seen any. Have you? I was referring primarily to Cardinal Provost's comments regarding the death penalty. Has the Church not had a magisterial teaching on capital punishment before Vatican II, or was it a tolerated position? Many popes have taught on the question of the death penalty for almost 2,000 years now, right? So you have Romans 13 that allows for the death penalty. So it's in the Bible, in the New Covenant, and Old Testament, where in the Old Testament it's commanded. In the New Testament, it's allowed in Romans 13. Early popes have taught that you have to implement the death penalty in some cases. So Pope Innocent I, they taught in their magisterium, you have to use the death penalty, because if you don't use the death penalty, you're undermining God's judgment where he allowed it in Romans 13. So you're at that point questioning his judgment. Innocent III taught infallibly, it would appear, that you cannot say it's a mortal sin to implement the death penalty. Numerous popes have said many things about it. Many popes, and many were in favor of it. A few were opposed to it, like Pope Nicholas. So a few opposed it, but most were in favor of it. You start to have a shift under John Paul II. So the present position is mostly rooted in John Paul II, with few exceptions. Like I said, Pope Nicholas I in the first millennium. There's some appeals there. The troll is continuing. It's me, your bro. You told me previous popes taught Muslims worship the same God. I debunked with JP2. You're not listening. You're not listening. No, you didn't. And I showed you how you didn't. I accept all of Vatican II. It's disrespectful to martyrs of Vatican II context. No, you accept your understanding and your interpretation of Vatican II, but you reject the Pope's interpretation and the magisterium's interpretation of Vatican II. That's the problem. But you're trolling, so I'm blocking this account as well. Stop trolling. How many months to the next dubia? Let me be silent on that one. Why do many people tend to feel that the ecumenism matter since Vatican II is wrong? Because they feel that it leads to indifferentism, a lack of the proclamation of the gospel, an undermining of the unicity of salvation in Jesus, and they feel that it undermines those values, those teachings, those dogmas. And so, yeah. Is this due to false narratives of traditionalist groups? Sometimes, not always, though. It's not always that. Sometimes it is, though. It's a combination. Sometimes there's a straw man that they're critiquing, and at other times there's not a straw man. There is a poor application of the concept of ecumenism. Okay, what else do we have? Okay. What's the most progressive thing about Leo? Probably the seamless garment, his embracing of the seamless garment view from Bernardine, Cardinal Bernardine. He offered a steelman version of it, in fairness to him, but many will still see that as progressive. I covered that yesterday. As in the death penalty in and of itself having always needed to be done after having met certain criteria. In certain cases, Innocent was saying it needs to be implemented. So, I mean, he wasn't arguing that you got to use it in every particular case, but he was arguing that you should use it in certain cases. Otherwise, you're undermining God's decision in Romans 13. And you're no longer acting as the agent of God's wrath as you're supposed to do according to Romans 13. How is promoting a sin at Mass ever okay? It's not, but the Pride Mass people don't believe that homosexuality is a sin if it's practiced in monogamy. That's the way they try to couch it, as somehow orthodox. They'll try to argue that all that was being condemned was a non-monogamous view of homosexuality. And so as long as homosexuality is being done in a way that's faithful and monogamous, and that's how they try to argue it. So no, they don't see it as a sin. That's the thing. Saw a meme that made me think of you, Michael. It was William Defoe with the word trads over him saying, I'm something of a pope-splainer myself. It's funny how the rad trad people who hated pope-splainers just 2 weeks ago all of a sudden have become pope-splainers. But they've become pope-splainers not in the good sense of the term, where you attempt to harmonize and reconcile popes. They've become pope-splainers in the negative sense of what they actually were saying about me, which wasn't true. But they were trying to say that I'm trying to explain away or dismiss things. being a papal lawyer, as they call it, in the negative sense of the term pope-splainer. The irony is they've become that. Whenever you point out to them something that goes against their ideology from Pope Leo the 14th, watch the pope-splaining come out. And here I mean by the explaining away, not an attempt to harmonize, not an attempt to give the judgment of charity, but rather an explaining away of things with some unreasonable response. And so the irony is they've become that, right? Oh how the turntables have turned, to quote Michael Scott. But William Dafoe, is that the dude who did the pimp pose? I think it is. No, okay. No, I'm confusing it with a different guy. Completely different guy. You know, the one I'm talking about where he holds the cane and he's like this, and it's like from the 17th century. As the church never flat out said homosexuality is a sin. It has, but the pride people will try to reinterpret those things as to say that the sin is whenever it was not faithful and not monogamous, and so not all forms of homosexuality, or whenever it was associated with temple worship, or whenever it was associated with pedophilia. They have a million ways in which they try to put a spin on it and you know, justify their position in light of what the church has said. You know, they just reinterpret a lot of things, and they'll use very complex arguments that the average person has never heard of and is not able to respond to, and they'll end up dominating the discussion a lot of times because of that. Thank you for the super sticker. Have a nice and wonderful summer. God bless you. Thank you. You too. I appreciate that. How the turntables have turned. Yeah. Right. I've been consistent all along. They're not. That's the funny thing. They're still not consistent. Boy. Who has come out against you? Everyone in the world, it would seem. From Cardinals on down. You know, it's a long history of people doing that. I'll leave it at that. Also, thank you for strongly pushing for the hermeneutic of continuity. Ever since you started to suggest it often, it's really made a lot of processing easier. Thank you. A says, thanks for your response. I sent a message to the diocese that priest parish was in. Good. And, you know, maybe something will happen, right? Let me know if they do anything about it. Let me know. Of course, the priest will get a copy of your message, and bishop may or may not do anything about it. Last Supper says, yes, the old jump down, for it is written. I have no idea what that is about or what that means. Jeff says, the other one I saw was a tweet with the text saying, Pope Leo, I loved Pope Francis and intend to continue his papacies, and the picture of Sam from Lord of the Rings crying and saying, you don't mean that. Who made the little beard comment again? Oh, I don't know who else has made it, but look, there's a whole lot of stuff I could say about that cardinal personally and take shots at him like that, but I'm not going to. I'll take the higher route and, again, limit myself to a critique of his theological position, which was atrocious and shameful, because no cardinal should be that ignorant of the magisterium. And I demonstrated that, and he did not respond to it sufficiently. He didn't even understand the critique. It was so pitiful. So I'm going to stick to the theological points. I could take shots at him as a person. I'm not going to, especially out of respect for him at his age. He's like 93 years old. going to respect my elders in age like that. But I'll limit myself to a critique of his theological position, which was absolutely dreadfully horrible and shameful, and inexcusable, and very telling. I'll stick to the theological points. Unfortunately, he didn't. Wasn't able to address them, so just attacked me personally and said I had a small beard. I don't know how that's a meaningful critique of anything. For me, it was funny, you know? But it's like, okay, aside from the fact that this is funny, how does this address anything that I just said about you theologically? Dude actually tried to quote to me Dona Veritatis as well. It's hilarious. Okay, what else we have? You know you're doing something right when the best Orthodox apologist is referring to Lofton in his debate. I don't think he's the best. But what happened, long story short, is that I used to know him when he was when I was looking into Eastern Orthodoxy and when I became Eastern Orthodox. And I kind of looked up to him for advice and answers to theological questions. Eventually, I got to the point where I no longer saw him as very helpful, and he, had to correct him on a few points and stuff like that. And I think his pride was hurt, and especially when I told him, "Hey, look, the Catholic position is stronger. I need to go back into communion with Rome." And I think he was really hurt by that, and so he created the Ubi personality shortly after that, and started trolling me and a few others. He also denied, the guy who is Ubi, he denied being Ubi at one point, so he is dishonest. But I finally figured out when he revealed his identity why he did that, because it's like, oh, okay. Because this Ubi character that he created came up shortly after his pride was hurt. So that's why they still talk about me to this day. For some reason, with these people, I've managed to consume all of their thoughts to where even if I have nothing to do with the discussion, they somehow bring me up in the discussion. It's a little flattering, but it is a little worrying how obsessive some of them have become. But yeah, I'm sorry, I would not say he's the best Orthodox apologist. I think you're giving him too much there. Okay. Brandon said, that would have made me so mad I can't grow a good beard. I'm sorry about that. Sorry to hear that. They see you as a threat. Look, I have consistently engaged their arguments and refuted their arguments. I could easily make them look stupid and talk about them on a personal level. And I know a lot of stuff about them privately that I could bring out. I'm not going to. I think that would be immoral. However, there's a lot there. They're easy targets. So if they want to play the ad hominem and games and they want to mock, look, you might want to back off. There's some stuff that I know about them that I could say, but I'm not going to. I'll stick to the topic, stick to the issues. I address the theological issues. I've responded to their arguments theologically. Time and time again, they can't do the same. All they can do is straw man me and then refute the straw man. But anybody can do that. And I think it's telling for anybody who's evaluating the situation with a level-headed way, who's good-willed, who's sincere, who's honest, who's trying to work through the issues. You can see the difference. I pull up their content, pull it up on the screen, let you hear them in their own words, then I refute them with primary sources that I show you on the screen. They don't do that. The best ortho apologist is a priest, not these orthobros. The best one that I think is not a priest, but that's my personal opinion. Dr. Lolo says, I think you're good and don't need to lower yourself to that level. Yeah. I mean, I'm just not going to. He didn't have a good argument against Catholicism. Um, Honestly, I could give them a lot better arguments against Catholicism. I'm wondering at what point are they going to pick up on some of the greater criticisms of the magisterium, of the papacy, of Catholicism, because there are way better critiques of the Catholic position than what they offer. I'm just wondering at what point are they going to stumble across this stuff. It's as if they're just really far behind. Saintly, this is why we appreciate you, Michael. Praying one day that we'll eventually level out as well. Appreciate it. Thank you. Alana says, I agree. He is at the best. Our Oath of Bros beg to differ. Look, again, these guys are a good 10 years behind what some of us in this discussion, where some of us are at this point. They're having conversations. Their knowledge, their level is about 10 years behind. Maybe that will change in time. Maybe they'll get some more information but yeah, for me it feels like they're really far behind, and it's kind of like there's way better criticisms that you could use. Let me just say that I don't think that you're going to find the best of either position in most online circles or from apologists from either side. Apologetics tends to be done at a lower level than I think the best of either position. So a steelman version of the papacy or a steelman version of Eastern Orthodoxy, I don't think you're going to find them in most apologetic circles, because again, apologetics tends to be done at a lower level, and that's fine. I mean, it's supposed to engage the average person, but just don't think that that's the end all and be all of really either position. So if you see a Catholic refuting an Eastern Orthodox online, that doesn't mean that they've refuted the best that Orthodoxy has to offer. If you see an Eastern Orthodox refuting a Catholic online, that doesn't mean that they've refuted the best that Catholicism has to offer. That's the sad reality. Okay. Did these critiques get lost in history where people in the modern day forgot about them? Yes. In many cases, yes. Definitely, yes. The strongest critiques are nothing new. The strongest critiques are pretty old, actually. But a lot of people just are not aware of the historical nature of the debate. They created another account. I'm entertaining at this point because it's hilarious. The third, this is your fifth account today. They created an account called Don't Block Me. Well, I'm still going to block you because, again, you're a troll. You're not of goodwill. You're not sincere. I am totally willing to engage people who disagree, who are sincere and of goodwill. You're not. You're not listening. You're not paying attention. But I'll entertain this just for comedy's sake. We're going to turn this into a comedy hour. He says, if Muslims worship the same God, can you convert to Islam? No, because Vatican II doesn't say same God. It doesn't logically follow. Do Catholics and Eastern Orthodox worship the same God? You would probably say yes. Does that mean that you can leave from Catholicism to Eastern Orthodoxy? No. One thing has nothing to do with the other. This is just basic logic. Can you please take a logic course or something? He says, butchering context, read properly. I did. You're not. All love, nice beard, Pope Benedict XVI, Regensburg address. Oh boy. Where do we begin with that one, right? You mean the Pope Benedict who believed that Catholics and Muslims worship the same God. You mean that Pope Benedict, right? You mean the one that agreed with what I was just saying about Vatican II, right? The one who was actually at Vatican II as a paridi. You mean that Benedict, right? Right. Again, I can't take you seriously because you're not actually taking the conversation seriously. So yes, I will block you again. But thank you for the comedic relief. Why is this, bro? That's wild, Liliana. I mean, we need it. We need it. We need some comedic relief to take us away from the stress of life. It's I kind of need this guy. I kind of need him to make another "Don't Block Me" #2 account. Dr. Lola, this guy needs a life. Well, poor guy. I mean, I guess we've all been there at some point, right? We've all been mistaken, weren't paying attention, weren't sincerely trying to hear someone out, or I think we've all been there at some point in our life, right? Usually people grow out of that, with more time and experience and age, but yeah, not always. I've seen some older people like that. So, but yeah, at this point, I'm just appreciating the comedic effect of it all. I guarantee the next account will be "Don't Block Me" #2, and I will block it again because I'll stop blocking you when you start taking me seriously and start actually addressing my response to you. When I see that you've understood my response and have sufficiently responded to it, I will take you seriously and I will no longer block you. Until then, I will block you because you're a troll. Deep breaths, Mike. This guy would let up. He just wants to be here. Well, he can still be here. I mean, you can still watch the stream. What else we got? If you don't laugh, you'll go insane. That's true. It's very true. Not spamming anymore. Sorry. I feel so bad for Mike. Yes, say the same thing over and over. It's even worse in other apologetics circles, having to answer the same question from live callers on how purgatory is biblical, answering the same objection for decades, multiple times every day in a live call-in show or something. I feel bad for like the guys at Catholic Answers. They have to answer the same questions over and over and over. It's like Chinese torture at some point, right? They drop a little water on you. At some point, it's got to do something to you mentally to have to answer the same question so many times. It's got to drive you crazy. And I've had a taste of that, but probably not to the extent that they have, with live callers asking the same question every day. It can be rough. What else we got? Do you think in the future rat trad groups will become like old Catholics and ordained women, that dissenters eventually dissent so far they become what they dissent against? Eventually you could have something like that. It's not that it comes out of nowhere. It takes a long period of time for them to become liberal. So like the old Catholics were very much opposed to women's ordination when they broke away after Vatican I. That was not an option for them. That was not on their radar. But eventually time, years can change things. Yeah, that could certainly happen. Yeah, don't quote Benedict at me when I'm quoting Benedict, right? It's like they don't think. Wise, takes 5 minutes to create an email on another YouTuber account, so he might be back soon. I'm just wondering, is he going to create the name of the channel as Don't Block Me #2 or second account? Chris says, "Don't block me, bro." Stickers. We need to create those. Catholic Answers. Can I annul my marriage? Yeah, that one's a pretty common one. I think the purgatory one's probably the most common, right? Dr. Lolo said, I had to stop watching Catholic Answers, not because they're bad, but because it's the same questions and answers. Well, that's the nature of it, right? It's to reach people where they're at, and to, new questioners. For those people, it's the first time they're asking that question. For the apologists, it's the millionth time they're answering it. So there's a purpose in it. There's room for that. There's need for it. But yeah, for somebody who's heard the answer numerous times, yeah. Mm-hmm. Carlo Broussard is so tired over there. I can understand. I mean, answering the same question over and over, it can be exhausting. I understand what that's like, but I think I think they have to deal with it to a greater degree than what I've had to deal with. So it's even more difficult and tiring. And so hats off to them for being able to answer the same question respectfully, um, without showing that they're tired. Hats off to them. That takes a lot. I mean, I just watch that and I'm amazed. Like, I wish I was that patient, and I wish I was able to do that. I mean, there's some virtue there to be able to be restrained and patient like that. There's some serious virtue to be able to do that. So hats off to them. It's a job I couldn't do. Live callers, get up on Magisterium AI. Tanner says, thanks, brother. Thank you. How would you teach catechism for teenagers if they don't pay attention or really care? There is a UCAT, right? One that's specifically for them. UCAT, Youth Catechism. Came out under Benedict. Trolls sending Loft into an early purgatory. Michael actually had a full mullet when he started RT. No, but I do think that I did lose my hair from stress at around the age of 35. So about 6 years ago. I think it was from stress. But not from the show. You can always say I did an episode on that, or rather 50 episodes, so just look it up. I do say that often, but then I feel bad for them because it's like I don't want them to have to like dig through a whole bunch of videos. So I'll give them a quick answer, but then tell them, go and watch the video I've already done on this. Dominique, as a student working at a call center, I can relate. I've been there. I've worked at 2 call centers before. It was the same questions. I got to the point that I knew what the question was about. As soon as they got on the call, they haven't said a word yet, but you hear their breath, and they're getting ready to ask they're getting ready to ask a question, but they haven't, but they do I knew by the way they breathed what the question was about. I kid you not. So I would be an autopilot. And I would not only know what the question is, but I would already also, of course, know the answer. And I would give the answer while simultaneously thinking of something else or writing an article. So I'd be writing while giving the answer, and I'm just on autopilot at that point. I kid you not. So I know the horrors and the dreadful situation that you have at a student call center. I've been there in other call centers. I know. He says all the same questions by 1,000 people. If you love them the way Christ does, it really helps to bring joy to help. I've been there. I understand the cross you're carrying. It's always the same key words. Not only key words. Before the words came out, I knew by the way they breathed. First of all, you have a little context by like caller ID. Maybe that will give you some indicator, right? And then number 2, by the way they breathed. I could tell. I usually was right, even just by the way they breathe, right? But at least within the first few words, like for sure by then you already know what this is and what the answer is. um, did I see the Cardinals in comment? I didn't. I don't know what it is. Is there a relation to breathing styles and people who end up in certain denominations? Haven't picked up on that yet. Okay. Dominique, I appreciate you so much more than I know you can relate to. I love my job. I pray for all the colors. I get it. I get it. There was a prayer from Pius X that I used to use every day on work. Pope Pius X prayer on work. Yeah. Pius X composed a prayer to Saint Joseph, the patron of saint workers, which is commonly used before work. The prayer emphasizes working with the spirit of penance. It was that one. It was that one. Yeah. Is this it? O glorious Saint Joseph, model of all those who are devoted to labor, obtain for me the grace to work in a spirit of penance for the expiation of many sins. Yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah, I used to have to use that because I was just like really really struggling there. Denominational breathing. Maybe at some point somebody will pick up on the distinctives between Catholics, Orthodox, Protestants, and others in the way they breathe. Okay, you being the source guy, Michael, you clearly recognize that you misattributed Zen's critique of you to a letter when it was actually from his diss track, Nick Zen. Nice. Okay. There it is. He's back, y'all. He's back. Yes. I was hoping. I'm assuming a he. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. Not trying to misgender you. He's back. Don't block or you're scared. Still gonna block. You scared, bro? What's wrong? You scared? You scared to debate, bro? Debate me, bro. Oh boy, these people. All right. And it's all caps this time. Okay, let's see what he says. Assuming a he. So if I became Muslim and we worship the same God, what would be wrong with that? That's illogical, bro. Okay. I'm just entertaining this at this point because it's fun. All right, let me gather my composure here. Okay. If you became a Muslim and Muslims and Christians worship the same God, what would be wrong with that? Okay, so from the Christian paradigm, if a Christian becomes a Muslim, the problem isn't the issue of worshiping the same God. The problem is, are you rejecting that which you knew to be true previously, and now you've rejected it? Also, the issue is, just because you worship the right God doesn't mean that you're going to heaven. Numerous Catholics in the Catholic paradigm worship the right God and go to hell every day. I've already answered this to you, right? Do you believe all Catholics go to heaven? Do you believe that? Or do you believe some Catholics go to hell? Now, hold on. If some Catholics go to hell, but wait, I thought they worship the one true God. Yes, they do. But there are other reasons why you might still go to hell, right? Yes. One of them being, if you know the truth about the fullness of the truth about who God is, and then you reject it for a deficiency from the Catholic paradigm, you've rejected the truth. Paragraph 14, at the end of it, talks about those who know that the church is made necessary by Jesus, refuse to enter or remain in it, can't be saved. So you see that level of culpability there for those who are no longer invincibly ignorant. This is just, you need to think through this stuff. I'm telling you, for your own benefit, your own sake, for your own benefit, think through things more carefully. This will help you in life. I don't know you from Adam, but I guarantee you have problems in the way that you understand other people in your daily life. I guarantee you do. And what I'm trying to tell you is to think more carefully, try to adopt a hermeneutic of continuity and harmonization. I think that will help you significantly in just your own personal communication with others. Give me 1 second. I heard a noise outside and I need to make sure everything's okay. I'll be right back. All right, everything's okay. All right, but um so I'm a little disappointed that you didn't rename the account or name the new account Don't Block Me number 2 or something like that. Account number 2. You disappointed. You said don't block or you're scared. Um I'm going to block this one because I want to see how long this goes on, because at this point I'm trolling you. I'm trolling the troll. I tend to do that sometimes. I troll trolls. And I want to see how long this goes on, right? I want to see how long this can be perpetuated. How many more accounts you're going to create, and what you're going to name them. Dominique, I could not have thought of a better comeback name. I could have. Uh, you scared, bro? Why is this guy serious? I think he is. I do think he is. But I'm having fun with it, so we're gonna keep doing it. So I want to see how long this goes. I just need to know. I don't know why. I just need to know. Okay, exactly. Moreover, just because one identifies and worships the same God does not mean their worship is correct, nor does it mean that they will or will not go to hell. Right? This is just such basic stuff that, look, hey, when I started theology, I didn't even know what the word theology was, right? We all got to start somewhere. I understand. I totally get it. But just have some humility. That's all I'm saying. Have some humility. Whenever you're corrected on a point, you're given information that refutes what you said or you haven't considered, just take it seriously and interact with it. And this person is not doing that, right? And that's my problem with this person. They're clearly not of goodwill. Okay, Michael, you broke it down. Now move on. No, I will not move on. I want to troll the troll, and I want to see how long this goes on, and I will continue to entertain it because I need to know. I just need to know. He did, Michael. That's his third. No, this is his fifth or sixth account, because I had to block him even before the show because he was still trolling there. Um, the noise was don't block me stalking Michael around his house. That's funny. Well, you gotta be careful with that. We're in Louisiana. We have a whole lot of guns, and that's a very dangerous thing. Did you know that? If you break into, I think it might be different with each state, but at least with Louisiana, if you go to enter someone's home or car, even if you haven't entered yet, you're trying to enter the home or car, you can kill that person in Louisiana. And no finder of facts, the law says, can basically say that you had a duty to retreat, or um, some alternative that you should take. No, you could just kill them. Now, I'm not saying that you should. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, in Louisiana, you can. So you have to be careful. Some people might try to break into somebody's car, or they got road rage. They go to open their car, you get shot and killed. You can make a really dumb mistake. I've had to deal with thieves. I've had to deal with people like that with road rage, and they learn very quickly. But the thing is, you put yourself in a dangerous situation in Louisiana because of the way the law is written. You've put your life in jeopardy, and you may not even know that your life was in jeopardy. Like, you might be shot and killed before you even know what was happening. It's some wild stuff. So the 6 account, yeah. Michael casually taking someone out to go back to the stream. No, but I've had to deal with some thieves and stuff like that, and stuff like that before, but that wasn't what just happened over there. It was a door slamming from a neighbor. I just had to make sure everything was okay. California is the opposite. Criminal has the right to do whatever, and I think there's a duty that you have to retreat, like a duty to retreat. So if they break into your house, you have a duty to like go into another room. You can't just shoot them when they break in. You have a duty to go into another room, leave the room, jump out the window. I think that's the case with California. Now in Louisiana, you have a stand your ground law and a castle doctrine, I think is what the law is called. And the law is written in such a way that they don't even have to have a gun on them. They don't have to have a weapon on them. If they just try to come in your home or car, you can kill them. Again, I'm not saying that you should. I'm not saying you should go to that measure in extreme. I'm not saying that that's how you should handle it. I'm just saying that you can legally be justified in Louisiana for doing that. So it's a serious thing. And some people get killed not knowing that they just put their life in jeopardy. And yeah, it's crazy stuff. Michael, what happened to your stalker? Which one? Which one are we talking about? There's so many of them at this point. I don't know which one we're talking about. Yeah, there's a lot of them. I was waiting on the guy. I was trying to see if he's going to come back. I don't know if he's going to come back, so I'll kill the stream here in a moment. But I was waiting. Not many solicitors in Louisiana, not smart ones, right? I mean, you still got people who try to do things, but again, they don't realize what kind of jeopardy they're putting their lives in when they do that. You break into somebody's house, you put your life at risk, and everyone in Louisiana has guns. So, I mean, you just, I don't know why anybody would do that, right? You had one that you had to report to the police. There's all sorts of wild stuff that goes on in Louisiana. I would be afraid to knock on the crazy neighbor's door. Knocking on the door, though, isn't forced entry, right? So technically that person wouldn't be allowed to shoot you through the door. Now, if they try to enter the home, like they, try to grab the handle and they're trying to open it, at that point, you can shoot them through the door and kill them in Louisiana. Not saying that you should. I think that's an obviously very aggressive and extreme response to somebody trying to come through. But I'm just saying, legally it's justifiable. Are people in Louisiana trigger happy? I don't know about the statistics on that. Timothy, that makes sense. I'm just thinking the person who would shoot that fast might not be in the frame of mind to tell the difference. Maybe. I mean, it's a real possibility, right? But there would be accountability on part of the person who does that. And you'll learn this if you have any gun training, Louisiana or anywhere. One of the things they'll teach you is you're responsible for every bullet. So you might have a justifiable shoot, right? Um, but just because you have something that's justified, what if you miss and that bullet goes into another room and hits a kid or hits a neighbor or somebody who's just an innocent party? It was a justified kill for you to shoot the intruder or whoever, but that bullet went to somebody and killed them, and that's not a justified kill. They're an innocent party. You're responsible for every bullet. So that's one of the reasons why they say don't aim for the head. You aim for like the body, the chest, because you go to aim for the head. I mean, you could be a really good shooter, but still it's a lot smaller. And so you would want to aim for the body, because you go to shoot the head, what if you miss? It might go into a room and kill somebody. So even though you were justified in shooting this person, it ended up missing them and hitting somebody who's innocent, and you're now responsible for that, and you could go to jail, obviously. Same in Missouri. It's Wild West out here. Yeah. Louisiana has murder rate by state, mostly with guns. I think I'm in the worst city in the United States, they say. Isn't Monroe in the most dangerous city in the country? I think it is. I think Monroe is the worst. When it comes to murders and danger and crime, I think Monroe's the number one in the United States. He's back! Yes, he's back! Yay! And I think it's a he because, oh no, he used a picture of me. You cheated. I thought that was you. That's me. I thought that was a picture of you with a profile picture, but no, I see that was me. That was the pink hoodie stream. That's fun. So you've been watching the channel for a while. I actually am starting to warm up to you now, knowing that, right? I'm actually starting to like you. Maybe I won't block you because of that. Don't block me or I win. I'm actually starting to like this guy. Assuming a guy. Assuming. I'm sorry if I misgendered you. All right, let me read the comment. Let's see what's going on here. There's a difference, and I love it. It's all caps again. There's a difference between a lukewarm Catholic and a Muslim. What if a faithful Muslim? If it's the same God, then how is that wrong? Okay. So from the Catholic paradigm, according to the same document that you're quoting from, in the exact same context, you're quoting from paragraph 15. Read the rest of paragraph 15. It says that Muslims can be saved. It literally explicitly says that in paragraph 15. Did you not read that? It tells you they could be saved. And what it's doing is it's assuming invincible ignorance. It's assuming they received an infusion of the theological virtues of faith, hope, and charity. It's assuming that they're following their conscience. How is it assuming it? Partly based on things Lumen Gentium's saying, partly based on what the 1949 Holy Office document said on this very subject. So at the very least, they have to have an implicit faith. They have to have the theological virtues infused. They have to obey their conscience. And they have to be invincibly ignorant. So Vatican II is kind of building on that, kind of assuming that you already have that work done and you're keeping those things in mind. And so it then says that, yeah, Muslims can be saved. So your question then is, there's a difference between a lukewarm Catholic and a Muslim. Yeah, there's obviously a difference, but it doesn't pertain to what we're discussing here. What if I was a faithful Muslim? According to Vatican II, you could be saved with the conditions I just met from the Catholic paradigm. If it's the same God, then how is that wrong? So the Catholic Church is going to say, even if you can be saved in these other communities, Jesus is saving you through those communities. There's still a responsibility on your part to seek the truth. There's still a responsibility on you to follow your conscience. And also it's in formal conversion to the Catholic Church that you find the fullness of the faith and the fullness of the riches of the Holy Spirit. And it's the safest way. And like there's numerous, we covered this last week when I did that comprehensive overview of the question of outside the church there is no salvation in a 2-hour stream. We covered this in detail. It was last week. Outside the church there is no salvation, ? A Comprehensive Overview is what I named the show. You'll want to go and watch that. At this point, I'm starting to warm up to the troll. You know what? I don't know if I'm going to block you at this point because actually I'm going to because I still want to see if you create another account. All right, I'm blocking that one because I just need to see how long this goes. Even though I'm actually starting to like you, I still got to block it because I just need to know if you're going to create another account. Okay. How about not breaking in? If they break in, they should already know the risk of death. Yeah, but some people don't know. They don't know, right? I mean, some of the people are really, they're idiots. They're breaking into somebody's house. That already tells you about their intellect, right? So some of these people don't know, and they find out the hard way, right? Or they don't find out at all because they die before they find out what just happened to them, right? Why are we going into shooting to such a degree? Good info, but maybe I understood the intent of the podcaster. Yeah, you probably missed the whole conversation that led up to that. Looks like you missed that whole conversation. Okay. And also it's good information to know, because if you're in that situation and you never know when will be in that situation where you have to defend your family or yourself, you need to know that you're responsible for every bullet. I was at a target range and I saw somebody shooting at, the poster, and they're shooting at the head instead of the body. And I saw an old experienced man come up to that person and say, don't do that, which was a little too much for him. It's kind of not your business, but I understood where he was coming from. He was saying, don't do that, aim at the body, because you're responsible for every bullet. And what happens if you miss that person? You're aiming at the head, you miss, and it now shoots into a neighbor or something, or a child or something. I understood what he was saying. I get the point, but it's kind of like, dude, it's target practice. Like, it's not your business, but whatever. I understood where he's coming from. Okay. Victoria said, dude is crashing out. Who? Not me. I'm enjoying this. Wise, I think the dude is confused. I think he is as well. Light of Christ Press, because going from Catholic to Muslim is going backwards. So from the Catholic paradigm, it would be going backwards, right? From a Muslim paradigm, it would be going forward and getting rid of idolatry and all that. So it depends on the perspective, right? But from Vatican II's perspective, obviously that's the Catholic perspective. That would be going backwards, because Vatican II obviously upholds the notion of the Trinity. Muslims reject the Trinity. So from that perspective, it's devolving in doctrine. So Michael's a Louisianian. Guns are his love language. They're pretty fun. I like to do target practice. The last 2 accounts wasn't me. Unblock me on my main. I want to understand your views. Allow me to challenge you on your points. Who knows? I might be convinced. I don't know if this is somebody else. This isn't him. This is somebody else created. They're now imitating the troll. I don't think it's him. I don't think it's him. And he's got Huey as the background picture for the Buddhas. I don't think this is him. This is somebody else trolling. This is someone trolling the troll of the troll. He said the last 2 accounts wasn't me. Unblock me on my main. I don't even remember what your main account is. I'm sorry. That ain't happening. I want to understand your views. Well, I already explained the views. Allow me to challenge you on your points. I already did, and you didn't engage them. If this is you, I don't think it's you, though. I think you're now a new person, which is why I'm going to leave you here, because I don't think that you're the other person. Actually, no, I need to block you too, because if you are the true person, I still need to see how many more accounts he creates. So just because of that, I have to block. I'm sorry. Do you think he can make as many accounts as there have been ecumenical councils? Well, he's got a ways to go, right? 21 of them. It was him. He's trolling you. I don't think that was him. Maybe it was though. Wise Line says, "Ha! Someone clip this." Well, you'd have to go like clip from clip to clip to clip, because you'd have to get the whole context from this stream. Brandon said, "This is getting confusing." I know. It is. This is what it's like dealing with church history, because you have to deal with the question of forgeries and people quoting forgeries. That's what I feel like we're dealing with right now with this guy. Is it really him, or is this somebody forging accounts pretending to be him? Ali says he's a man. I'm convinced he's 13. I would peg him at, let's say, I think he would be, I do think it's a male, right? I would probably estimate 18, 19. Mr. Troll, I don't know your name. Please let me know, did I get it right? Are you about 18, 19 years old? Let me know. If you are, you gotta give me like a super chat or something. Because you know that would be like really good if I guessed your, not just your gender, but your age. I think you're 18 or 19. Divine Mercy, I'm starting to like the guy. Right? I know, right? Right? I am too. But I don't want to block him because actually I'm starting to like the fact that he's such a good troll. But I need to know how long this is gonna go. So I have to, like, I'm mixed. I have to block him because I need to know how many more accounts he's gonna create. But then I don't want to block him because I actually think he's a really good troll. He's a step up, he's a notch up from all the other trolls, right? He's a troll with humor. Why not just pretend to be someone else and not get blocked so quickly? Because I think he has a sense of humor. That's why I like him. You need to do a don't block me stream. This stream is going an hour and a half longer than I expected because of this. Dominique, Professor, could you possibly teach on how ecumenical councils can still be divinely inspired on faith and morals? Still dumpster fires in terms of governance and execution. I understand what you're saying, but I do have to correct. Divinely inspired, that would not be a Catholic position. Some Eastern Orthodox do believe that about ecumenical councils. They do believe they're inspired. There is that kind of language is sometimes used, but in the early church, but I don't think they were using it in the same way that Catholics use the term inspiration today. Inspiration means like every word is divinely revealed by God, as opposed to inerrant, where just the substance of the idea is without error, but not the words. That, like, rephrase, the words themselves are not dictated by God, but they are, or chosen by God. The way it's expressed is not how necessarily God would express it, but the proposition is free from error. That's kind of the difference between inspiration and inerrant. I think what you meant is inerrant, and even then you need to further clarify or qualify. Ecumenical councils can teach infallibly. They can also teach non-infallibly. So some of their acts would be considered infallible. Other acts would not. So with that out of the way, how can they be inerrant on some matters of faith and morals and still dumpster fires in terms of government and execution? So the idea is that inerrancy is not for an application of doctrine and governance, but is limited to the proposition of the teaching on faith and morals. So whether or not they judged a person accurately, whether or not they applied the doctrine in the best possible way, is not the same as the truth of the proposition. So that's the quick answer. Okay, so for real, you need to make a don't block me, bro, merch. Maybe I need to do this, right? Let me maybe make a reminder, reasonmerch.com, or where I sell my merch. Maybe I need to create a mug today. I'm gonna keep the browser open so I remember to make it. Reasonmerch.com. What's happening to the website? I think I'll need to fix it because let's see. Are y'all able to go to it? Reasonmerch.com. For some reason, I'm having an issue going to it. I'll need to figure out what's going on with the website. If y'all are having the same difficulty, let me know there in the chat. Born Again Catholic says it's 4 a.m. in Australia. Wow, that is wild. Hey, what are y'all doing in here? Welcome to the party, Jacob. I don't even know how to catch you up at this point. Cardinals in and sunglasses is my merch. I did did get some Cardinals Inn mugs sent to me by a few patrons. Yeah, go to the website. Tell me, is it working? Reasonmerch.com. Is it down for y'all? It's not working for me on my computer. Let's try my phone. Not working even on my phone. I don't understand why that would be. Okay, it's working for you, Anthony. So it just must be something with me. I'll need to find out what's going on with my connection. Not gonna lie, YouTube live streams are where I test my stand-up and one-liners. Yeah, they can be fun. Are there certificate programs in theology, not masters? Funny you ask. Well, you know what? I could still sneak you in. We already began 2 weeks ago, but I could still sneak you in for this. I'll show you something. Here's my certificate program that I offer on the magisterium. You go to catholicpolytechnic.org/magisterium, or just go to, just type in on Google Catholic Polytechnic University, click on magisterium over here under more, and it will take you to the website. So maybe I'll put it in the chat there. So catholicpolytechnic.org/magisterium. It's one of 3 courses that I offer on a magisterial study certificate program with a Catholic university. It's the only kind in the world of its kind. There are no magisterial study programs like this in the world. So if you're wanting some kind of certificate program and it's on questions like theology, what we've been discussing, this would be it. We did start a new round of the program because we just had graduates a few months ago. We started over May earlier this month, but you still have enough time if you want, because it's still early on. So if you want to be part of it, I can talk to them and it shouldn't be a problem. You'll just want to get caught up on the lectures, on the first and second lectures, and go ahead and take the third lecture for this course, Introduction to the Magisterium. You'll scroll down, click here to register. You go there, register, do all that, then come back here and go to the PayPal link to pay for the course. Once you've done that, then you'll be signed up for the first of the 3 courses. Once you've completed all 3 courses, you'll get this certificate program. It'll be a little less than a year to do all 3 courses. I'll look for an email if they forward me another registration email or something, or anybody else who's watching, if y'all want to do it too. I'll look for that and I'll add y'all, and I'll catch you up, via email and let you know what to do once I see that, you registered and you paid. You'll need to do both. Sometimes I saw people register and they didn't pay. Well, you got to do both. You got to do the registration, come back and do the payment for the course. And then I'll get that information. Also, you can give me a heads up by emailing me if you want to do that. Maybe give me a heads up, reasonandtheology@gmail.com. And maybe just kind of put in the subject line CPU course or something like that. That way I know what it's about. Yeah, I might start the next round. That's perfectly fine. Yeah. I'm just making you aware of options if you were interested. But yeah, there's still enough time if you do want to do that. But yeah, next round will probably be another year or so from now. Okay. Anyways, well, did we get another troll post? I don't think we did. I don't see it. Maybe Maybe he's not coming back. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't want to scare you off. I wanted to see how long you were going to do the create fake accounts, though. Like, I was really enjoying that. I'm sorry. I didn't want to block you at that point, right? But I had to because I just had to see how many times you would create new accounts. I just needed to know. I'm just that type of person. I troll trolls. And so I find it entertaining. I don't initiate the trolling, okay? But I will troll trolls. So, I'm the guy who, whenever a scammer calls me on the phone, I will have so much fun with them, and I'll do new accents and everything, and I will go like, I'll take it really far. And then I'll try to call the scammer back and harass the scammer, and then I'll try to flood them with emails and phone calls. Like, I try to start harassing them. It's fun. I don't know. Again, I don't start it, okay, but I will finish it. The troller. Basically, it's fun. I mean, come on. Here it is. He's back. He's back. Again, assuming he's using my picture. Keep running. Scared, Michael. This is the real. The real don't block me too. I love it. I'm gonna still have to block because, again, I just need to see how many times we're gonna go through this. Even if I don't continue on the stream now, I'll still look for you in the comment section, and we'll continue this process as long as it can go. He says, "Let me adjure you." No, answer my question. Are you 18 or 19 years old? That's what I figured. You're a male who's 18 or 19-ish. We had some people say you were 29. I think you're 18 or 19 years old. Answer the question. Are you 18 or 19? Did I get it right? And if so, you should probably send me a super chat. No, we're still going to block you. I still need to know how long this is going to go on. We're still going to go through this process. No way. He says I'm 19. Are you telling me the truth, though? Or are you just trolling me? Tell me the truth. Did I get it right? Honest. Let's just be honest with each other. Did I get it right? Don't troll me. Just tell me the truth before God. Are you 19? Before God, did I get it right? In your conscience. You don't want to go against your conscience and lie. Tell me the truth. So the answer that you give me, are you really 19? Did I get it right? Or are you just playing with me? I need to know. I'm going to wait on blocking you until I get it, because I need to know. Because if I got it right, you should probably give me a super chat or a donation or something. You should probably do that, because like, that's skills right there. That's skills. I'm waiting. Come on now. It doesn't take long to type the answer. Bro really said scared, Potter. What's wrong? You scared, bro? Isn't that a sin to irritate people to anger? I don't know. But if you have somebody who's harassing people, I think it's perfectly legitimate to give them a taste of their own medicine. Okay, what else we got here? I'm looking for the response. Come on now. Answer the truth. Are you 19? Don't tell me you're checking out on me already. Left and came back. The troll mister still a thing? Yes, it's still going on. We got another one. I knew there was a troll imitating the troll. This is my last unblock me on your latest comment section. But you're faking you're imitating the troll. We know that you're not the real troll. We know you're not. You're imitating the original one. So I got to block you too. But I also need to know how long it's going to go on with you. But the other one, though, I still haven't blocked, because the real don't block me too, I think, is the original troll. And I need to know. You said that I got it right, that you're 19 years old. But tell me the truth. Are you just trolling me, or is that the honest to God truth? Did I really get it right? Because if I got it right, like, y'all should send a super chat or something. Christ Bear, it's been me all along. I don't believe you. Come on. You're not going to give me an answer? Now I think you're lying because you didn't answer me quickly. For you to not respond tells me you don't want to lie. Okay. He said I just turned 19. Y'all got to give it to me. Y'all got to give it. Like, you need to send me a chat, Mr. Troll, a super chat. I think the audience should send me. That's skills, right? That's Napoleon Dynamite skills right there, right? Where he drew the magical lion. Those are some real skills. All right, don't block me too. We're blocking you just because I need to know. But I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream since we're at 2 hours. We'll go ahead and end it here. This was fun. I enjoyed it. Looking forward to more. Okay, we got a lot more content coming your way, so make sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the like button as well. Plenty more stuff to come. I'm going to be reviewing some Wes Huff stuff probably either later today or most likely tomorrow. So look for that. We'll have a change of pace from Pope Leo stuff there. So, all right, that's going to do it. See you later.